Okay. Um, this is like my eighth time doing this intro, and I realized no matter how many times I do it, it's going to suck because this is episode one, and every first of anything that's ever been done has never been very good, especially when it's done by people like me who are early 20s and have never done anything in their life very productive. So, welcome to the Amateur Podcast. I'm your host, Julian. Um, I'm the amateur. I just wanted to start by telling you what this podcast is, a little bit about me, why I called it the amateur. The answer to why I called it the amateur and who I am is actually the same answer. Uh, so let's just jump right into it. This I'll tell you a little bit about me first. My name is Julian. I'm 23. I have a Substack, which, if you are coming from the Substack, you are probably a friend or a family member, because that's who all of my subscribers are on Substack. If you are unfamiliar with me or my Substack, um, this is my first presentation of myself to the world. Uh, so this is going to be a largely political, cultural kind of commentary show, um, where I just sort of give my ideas about things that are going on in the political and cultural landscape in America. Like I said, I'm 23. I have no formal political background. I I have a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from ASU, but I have no formal political education or classical education. I'm not. I, Unfortunately, I'm not Alexander Hamilton. But I do. I started getting into politics at a young age, probably when I was like a sophomore in high school, and I'm self-taught, self-educated on most political issues. So I'm starting this because I have a lot of ideas that I'm still trying to figure out about politics and culture, and I think I'm an amateur at those things. I'm certainly not a professional. I've never done anything like this before, but I think there might be a market for it, because I think there's a lot of people out there who are like me in that they might, in our modern age, politics has seeped so much into our lives that it can be hard to navigate at times, because politics is not a simple uh, interest. It takes a lot of cultivation. It takes a lot of education to be informed on a lot of these issues. And most people who think they are interested in politics actually really have no idea what they're talking about, because they get most of their news from TikTok or mainstream media, which is just propaganda outlets at this point. And it can be really difficult to know where to start. So I think I'm offering myself as like a place to start for those people who really just want to like figure things out, because that's what I'm doing. I'm just trying to figure all this stuff out, and um, maybe others watching me go through my own ideas, my own exploration of ideas and topics, could get something out of that for themselves, and might help them form their own ideas about certain things. Like I said, I've had a Substack for probably over a year at this point, and I don't know, I've written something like 20, 25, 30 essays. I don't really know how many it is. The first ones are not probably, they're awful. I know that they are. The most recent ones, I think, have actually been, I've started to care about my writing a little bit more, and I think I've actually started cultivating actual firm beliefs in these things. And I think now, to me, this is the perfect time to present them in this kind of medium, not just in written form, because most people don't read, but a lot of people watch and listen. So I think this is another way where I could maybe pull people in, start getting people interested in the things that matter, and we'll just go from there. So I'm going to start with like a really basic political story that I think is a little bit. When I first came up with the idea to talk about this, I thought it was kind of a silly story that was making its rounds. But now it's actually becoming like a big deal, not because I think it's a big deal, but because a lot of Democrats think it is. And that is Donald Trump's new ballroom that he's building. People are freaking out about the mostly when I say people, I mean Democrats. Democrats are freaking out about this ballroom that Donald Trump is building, as if presidents have never renovated parts of the White House before. And it's really, I thought the outrage was silly at first, and it is silly. It is a silly outrage. Democrats pick the oddest hills to die on. First of all, Donald Trump has been campaigning on building a ballroom in the White House since like January of 2016. So this is not some like new thing that he just pulled out of nowhere and started, getting to work in construction. He's also Democrats are acting like they're like all surprised that these renovations are happening right now when he's been talking about the ballroom being built for months at this point. Um, that so that's one aspect of it that I think is just silly, acting like this is out of the blue, out of nowhere. It's totally not. The other thing is um, outrage at the demolition of the east wing of the White House in order to actually construct the ballroom. There is there is nothing special about the east wing of the White House. I think it was built in like 1902 by Teddy Roosevelt, and then it was completely renovated in I want to say the 40s, 1942 maybe, by FDR, who added a second story to it. And basically since then, it's been office buildings or offices and workspaces. The Oval Office is not in there. Any of the like really prominent historical areas of the White House are not in the East Wing. So it should not be at all controversial that uh, we could remove some of those like vestigial parts of the White House and replace it with a nice, grand, beautiful ballroom that will be used by basically every president after Donald Trump. He's not really going to get to use it because it's not going to be finished until 2029. So it'll be the end of his term by the time the construction is complete. So the outrage about the demolition of the East Wing is ridiculous. I saw a post on X saying that it remind the images of the demolished East Wing of the White House reminded them of seeing images of the Pentagon after the plane crashed into it on 9/11. Really? Does it? Are we really comparing the demolition of some offices and workspaces to a literal terrorist attack? Again, Democrats picking the weirdest hills to die on. And the other thing about the other thing about this controversy that makes no sense to me is that this ballroom is actually needed. Like this is this is something that several presidents in the past have wanted to do. And this is something that we actually need when we host events at the White House. I don't know if you guys are aware, but right now, currently, the White House has like an event area. I wouldn't exactly call it a ballroom, but I think it only seats like 200 people. I think this new one would get it up to like 600. Basically, all events where foreign leaders are invited and like prominent political figures of the world are invited. They're held in tents. The White House has to like construct these giant tents on the lawn just to hold um, these very grand events. We are the most powerful country on earth. We don't have a venue to host events for political figures of the world. I think that's a little ridiculous. So I think the outrage for the construction of something that we would actually get very good use out of is also just completely ridiculous. So that's one issue that I wanted to talk about. And then there's a more serious thing that I think is popping up on the political right at the moment. The conservative movement is kind of I, I don't want to say it's actively splitting, but it seems like it's actively splitting. There is division among the right currently. And it started, I think, but the attention to the controversy started with this one story um, that everyone is probably familiar with, but we're gonna have to look back a little ways. It was like 2 weeks ago. I know in our modern political climate, no one remembers the news stories that happened 2 weeks ago, maybe not even from like 1 week ago. So we're gonna look back in time a little bit, and we're gonna remember the story of the Young Republicans group chat. There was a lot of leaked text messages from this group chat uh, between some members of the Young Republicans, and the content of the group chat was gross to say the least. It was a lot of Hitler jokes and gas chamber talk and slavery and rape and really really great stuff. But clearly jokes. So there was a lot of outrage by Democrats or people of the left over this group chat of these Republicans making these jokes. And I'm not even really defending the content of the group chat. That type of humor. It's one. Can we should just be honest about this. Guys do that. This is not something unique. This is not something that's actually really that fringe. Boys do this. It's called shock humor. You basically try to say the most absurd, offensive, outlandish, cancelable thing that you can possibly say to your friends in order to get a laugh. It's Is it the highest quality of comedy? No, but they are jokes. So whether or not you find them funny is kind of irrelevant to the fact that they're not serious. These young this I'm we can assume by looking at the context of the rest of the messages that these young Republicans don't actually like Hitler and slavery, because that's crazy. And if they did, if they were actual like Nazis and white supremacists, then we should condemn them, of course. But they were joking. They were clearly joking. Um, and the only reason that this has had any kind of like media coverage is because the Democrats are trying to cover for the fact that a few weeks prior to that, there was a story about a Democrat candidate for Attorney General, I believe in Virginia, Jay Jones, had some of his text messages leaked where he was actively calling for the death of his political opponent. And he was 100% serious. You can see if you read the text messages, he says that he would rather his political opponent die. The person he's texting says, "Hey, like, are you?" Kind of implies like, "Oh, that's crazy. Like, are you being serious?" And he doubles down and he says, "Yes, I'm 100% serious." And he starts calling his political opponent's children little fascists and all the rest. It's really, really gross stuff. So very clearly, it's this elevation of the story of the Young Republicans group chat is really just to try and cover for this evil Democrat candidate, Jay Jones. And it's really weak because there's really no equivalency there. You have a bunch of young guys joking about offensive topics, and you have an actual political candidate, a figure in politics, who is running for a attorney general, calling for the death of his political opponent. There's no equivalency between those two things. But what is interesting about the story is that it started a couple conversations on the right, and to be very clear, these are two different conversations, and I think a lot of people, especially online, are getting them kind of mixed up, and they're getting confused between one and the other. So I want to make it clear that the first thing about the Young Republicans is one thing. There is a broader story, there's a broader debate that's happening on the right currently about who we should include in the conservative movement. Now, this started obviously with talking about the Young Republicans. There were some people saying we should condemn them. This is an act of evil. There were some people calling for them to lose their jobs, for them to be ousted from the conservative movement. I think all of that is crazy. That's nuts. We should not oust these guys who were making bad jokes. This is the kind of content that is regularly aired on like national television. You can find the same style of comedy on South Park and Family Guy and basically any mainstream comedian who is actively touring in the world right now. They all make jokes about 9/11 and slavery and Hitler and Jews and all of the rest. And we don't cancel those people. So it seems weird that we would say, hey, you guys who are making jokes in a private group chat, we actually have to condemn you because you didn't say it on stage in front of millions of people. That seems nuts to me. But it started a broader debate about who we actually should include in the conservative movement. Should we condemn people? Should we, or their ideas? Should we not let some people join the conservative movement? Though that's a different debate. It's a different question, and it actually is a debate because when you have a movement that is grounded in certain ideas, you should only allow people who share those ideas into the movement. I think this controversy, or I don't know, controversy is the wrong word. I think this debate really started with Matt Walsh. Matt, after in the aftermath of the murder of Charlie Kirk, Matt said that he was willing to unify with anybody to the right of Bill Maher in order to defeat the left. If you are not of the left, welcome in. You can join. You're part of the movement. We have to win. Because he was sick of the division and the infighting and all the rest. And I certainly understand the motivation for it, but I kind of I disagree with it in principle and in practice. Because what that not everyone on the right is fighting the left for the same purpose. I consider myself a relatively mainstream conservative. I do not align with like the Nick Fuenteses of the world. I think we're fighting for different purposes. Nick Fuentes is anti-left. I'm anti-left, but my attacks on the left are coming from a place of conservative principles. I think Nick Fuentes are coming from a place of reactionary identitarianism, which I don't like. And so I think people who do not have conservatism really, what is the thing that we're conserving? We're trying to conserve Western civilization. And I think if you are not of the left, but you also are not interested in the preservation of Western civilization, you should not be included in the movement because we have different purposes. You're not on the team. So in principle, I disagree with it. Matt was making a practical argument, which was that we need to form a unified coalition in order to defeat the left. So if that means accepting the radicals, that's what we have to do in order to defeat the left. I think that's a practically flawed approach. I think it's strategically flawed. And the reason I think it's strategically flawed is because that's what the left did, and that's why they lost. The reason that Donald Trump won in 2024 is because the mainstream left, we could call them like the kind of mainstream Democrat Party, allowed in the socialists and the transgender ideologues and the anti-white, anti-Christians. And instead of, let's say this is like mainstream left, they thought they could pull the radicals in to form like a unified coalition. What actually happened is that the radicals just took over the coalition and pulled the mainstream even further left. And I think the normie Americans found themselves still in the middle, but now the right is everything else that's over here. So we got all the normies and they had all the crazies, and that's why we won. Now, what's going to happen to the right is if we accept the fringiest of the fringe, the anti Semites and the white supremacists, the same thing is going to happen to the conservative movement. We will lose every election if we accept the radicalism because the I understand the motivation for it. We have to win. The winners go to Washington and the losers go home. That's what they say. We have to win elections. That's very important. But the correct response to the left's craziness is not our own craziness. The correct response to craziness is the truth, is reality. That is how we win, by exposing the truth, by bringing in people to the truth, not allowing the crazies to pull us away from it. I'm using Matt Walsh as an example because he's kind of the center of the debate right now. Um, Matt is getting attacked. Some, a lot of it unjustified, a lot of it, some of it justified. I'm not saying the attacks are justified, but some of the criticisms of Matt's um, strategy here are are justified, and I think they actually have some merit to them. And I agree with some of them. Um, it started with Matt saying he was willing to unify with anyone to the right of Bill Maher in order to defeat the left. And when people rightly pointed out, hey, a lot of those people to the right of Bill Maher have ideas that directly contradict the things that we believe in as conservatives. So maybe we shouldn't align ourselves with their ideas. Maybe we shouldn't let their ideas kind of infiltrate the movement, the conservative movement. Matt changed it into a different argument then. Then it became an argument of loyalty and friendship, which I thought was a little odd because what what my argument and what a lot of other people's arguments were was not that you have to cut yourself off from Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens. I know Matt Walsh is friends with Tucker. I know Michael Knowles is friends with Tucker and friends with Candace Owens. Um, I'm not saying you can't be friends with those people, but you should be able to say that their ideas are incorrect or contrary to conservatism. I don't think that that's crazy because your friend, I'm assuming that Matt Walsh and Michael Knowles are also friends with Ben Shapiro, and they regularly disagree with Ben publicly. So I think it's a little bit contradictory to say that I can only disagree with these friends and not these friends, or I don't know exactly what it is. The motivation there is weird. Um, but and the other thing about that is, like, okay, you're friends with Tucker Carlson. You're also friends with Ben Shapiro. Tucker Carlson has been relentlessly attacking your friend Ben Shapiro for quite a while now. You have loyalty to one friend and not the other. You're not going to defend Ben. You're not going to denounce some of the fringy weird ideas of Tucker. I'm assuming if Ben, you already do that with Ben. You already say you disagree with Ben on all of these things. Why can't you just say you disagree with Tucker? That's what's confusing to me. Um, but it's something that we kind of have to iron out as conservatives. We have to get this right because the election cycle, especially now, is shorter than we think. In a year. Midterms are in a year, and we don't want to lose the House. We have a very good coalition right now. We have the House, we have the Senate, we have the White House, we have the Supreme Court. Um, we have a very effective coalition right now. We don't need to lose it by adopting strategies that are conducive to losing. Um, so I think that's something that's going to need to be addressed. Okay, um, I think that's all I really wanted to talk about today. I'm planning on doing this probably like once every 2 weeks. Just to This is a very new endeavor for me. I don't want to I don't want to I don't want to overwhelm myself to the point where I cannot be consistent in it. So I'm going to start with once every 2 weeks. If I need to go more, I'll do more. If I need to do less, I'll do less. But yeah, thank you for watching. Uh, you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're listening to this on Substack, leave a comment. Give me likes, give me shares, all that good stuff. Um, Thank you.